Well, good evening from London, where the sun is shining for a change, and welcome to another Zoom event with Harif. Um, Harif, for those who don't know us, and I know most of you do and have heard this before, but for those who don't know us, we are the UK Association of Jews from the Middle East and North Africa, and we aim to raise awareness of the history, heritage, and culture of Jews from this region. We have a website, www.harif.org. To receive details of our events, you have to be subscribed. Just go to our website and press the subscribe button, and it's free. We have a sister website, which is really a news blog called Point of No Return. And you can access that by pressing news on our blog. And that is updated daily. It has over 7,000 articles on it. And it's quite an archive by now. And I do encourage you to subscribe to that as well. This session is being recorded, and hopefully, I will be able to upload the recording to our website in a matter of hours. So, to access that recording and indeed to access all our recordings, there are over 100 recordings there. Just click on videos on our website. So you will have a chance to ask our guest speaker questions or make comments, but please do put them in the chat. So on with tonight's subject, which is, well, actually, our guest is Kira Shalom. I'm really delighted to be in conversation with Kira, specifically about her Instagram page, which is called The Mizrahi Story. Have I got it right, Kira?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, Kira records short interviews with Mizrahi Jews and posts them to her social media. She is phenomenally successful, and I shall be trying to find out her secret. She will be showing us some examples of her work. And as it will soon be Passover, I thought we would begin by asking her to show us some interviews with people talking about their exodus from Arab countries. So, Kira, welcome. Thank you for joining me. And can you tell us more?
Hi, hi everyone. Thanks Lynn for having me and for everyone for having me. And I appreciate so many of you coming to listen to Little Old Me chat and talk about my page. Yeah, today I just want to show you a couple of videos that pertain to the topic of Exodus. A lot of the videos on my page are about lots of different things, the lives and the testimonies of Jewish people from the Middle East and North Africa, either in English or in their native language, Judeo-Arabic, Judeo-Neo-Aramaic, Farsi, whatever it might be. But today, obviously, the theme is Exodus. So I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has and any questions Lynn might have. I do need prompting sometimes. Can't just lament on about everything without a prompt, but you can ask me anything that you'd like, and just let me know what you would like to watch, and I'm happy to showcase it.
Right, so shall we start with the first story?
Yes. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Um, there we are. Let me just share it. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okie dokie. Well, I'm gonna try and get off this actually. Sorry, there's something in the way of my. Oh, okay. Lovely. Oh, it's a bit jarring to see my face just the middle of
No,
the screen.
not jarring at all, Kira. Very, very nice.
So then the first one I'd like to show you is of David Gerbi. He is a Libyan Jew from Tripoli, and he was exiled from Libya in 1967 after a violent pogrom, after obviously the war with Israel. And he has quite an interesting story of exile, but this video sort of focuses more on his pain and sort of the things that he wanted to share about the aftermath of exile and the sort of the pains that come along with it. So I'm just going to play it very briefly. Can everybody just, if anybody can't hear it, can everybody just let me know and I'll just restart the video. So I'm just going to try and play it now. Hold on.
Gerbi. I born in Libya in Tripoli.
Can everybody hear that?
Perfect.
Yeah, lovely. Okie dokie. Hold on. I'm just going to go off it and replay that so that everybody can hear. Okay, there you go.
Hello, my name is David Gerbi. I born in Libya in Tripoli in 1955, and we have been expelled in 1967. So the first time that I went in Libya back after 67 was in 2002. I was there for 1 week to visit the last Jew of Libya, my aunt, Rina Debash, 80 years old. I found just by coincidence that she was forgotten in a Libyan hospice. We thought she was dead, but she was still alive. And she wanted so much to come back in with the family. She didn't marry, and she didn't want to stay there. Also because they destroyed the cemetery. She wanted to bury in a Jewish cemetery. So I brought her to Rome after 1 year and 1 month of back and forth with Gaddafi. And she arrived in Rome. She stayed 40 days and then she died, but she was happy that she didn't die in Libya. Now I want to tell you what's happened in 2011. I've been invited to work with the Italian government in the hospital of Benghazi, psychiatry hospital. I went twice in 2011. Then I asked, I can go and pray in the synagogue. They told me, yes, you can go there. And then I said, but the synagogue is closed with the wall. They say, okay, break the wall, because I wanted to clean the synagogue. I couldn't take out all the garbage and the animal. It was dirty. It was really terrible to me as a Jew to see a sacred place dedicated to God, that is the God of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, to be a place for the garbage. So I went there and I break the wall, and I thought just to do it in order to clean the synagogue and to invite all the Libyan Jews that they wanted to come, because they say it's free. Now that Gaddafi is not there anymore, we could come back and pray there and to celebrate Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. But at the end, things went in another direction, and they wanted to kill me because they didn't want a Jew back in Libya. They saw that I came to conquer Libya. I just came there to clean, and hoping to bring the Jewish delegation to come and to pray after so many years, to stay there together and to pray for our dear one. When suddenly I discover that the people, the Libyan of Benghazi and the Libyan of Tripoli, didn't want me there, I felt again like in 67. And I remember the same sentence that my father, may he rest in peace, he was repeating, my habunash, which is mean, they don't want us, they don't want us. So I felt the same, but I have to admit that there were also people that they wanted me, that they loved me, and it's the truth. It's not black and white. There are people that just love me and protect me and also save my life. So I hope that one day the people like this, like Selma Bukagis, like Isam, like Nader, who disappear, like Bakusha, who save our life, I hope that it will be a Libya full of this kind of people, where they accept the diversity, but that we enrich each other, that we coexist. and Libya can be a model for peace. This is my hope. Hello, my name is David.
Hey, Hiya.
Well, that was such a moving story, wasn't it? He's one of these rare people who's got such bravery and courage, and he never gives up, and he's still campaigning for friendship. He's got special relations with the Amazigh people in Libya, which he was telling. I think he's actually the head of the Amazighs in Libya, isn't he?
Yeah,
And
no, he's
how did you find meeting him,
um
Kira?
so I found him to be a very, very interesting person because of the fact that there's such a dichotomy with him. There's such a the nuance of the story of the Jews of the Middle East and North Africa is extremely present when you meet David Gerbi, because on one hand, he's still traumatized from the pain of being expelled in 67. And he's still completely, he feels a sense of betrayal, and you can feel that on him. But then at the same time, he has this part of him that is still so hopeful, which is so interesting. And that's something that I've seen a lot of since interviewing the Jewish people who once lived in the Middle East and North Africa, is that things are so not black and white. They're so nuanced. There is always this feeling of betrayal and tragedy and despair and becoming a refugee and losing everything that you once knew. But there is also this feeling of nostalgia and, well, maybe it could go back to what it was. Or kind of, I don't even like, there's a version of this country that exists within my mind, and I want to bring it to fruition. And I feel like David Gerbi is one of the people who doesn't just sort of like live in the nostalgia. He tries to actively bring back the Libya of his childhood to the modern day, which, look, a lot of people will say that it's not going to be fruitful, and a lot of people will be very pessimistic, especially after his experience in 2011. But the fact that after he had that experience in 2011, where people are literally holding up signs that say, "We refuse the Jew on our land," the fact that he still advocates and he's still trying to bring a delegation to Libya, and he's still trying to educate about the Jews of Libya and other minorities, it just shows me that, at the end of the day, as much as people will try occasionally to say that Jewish people didn't have homes in the Middle East and North Africa, and they were just stopping off points before we returned to the land of Israel. And no, a lot of these people, they they loved their homes, and they really love their lives to an extent within their own bubbles and their own circles in these countries. And I think David Jabi is a really amazing example of that. And I was so I just loved his energy and his spirit and his soul, and the way that he was so comfortable just living in the multifaceted nature of his experience. And he wasn't trying to make it one thing or trying to make it another. He was very comfortable just sort of living in this idea of, you know what, it wasn't great, but it wasn't not great, and you will never understand because you weren't there. And I loved that. And yeah, I loved him. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah. And I remember, I mean, we met him together actually, but I remember he picked up the phone and he dialed a friend of his in Libya and started talking to her in Arabic, as if it was yesterday that he was still living there, which was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I
Uh,
think that's also really lovely to have seen, because I think it also showcased the respect that the other lady had for him on the phone as well. And she was so willing to help. I think he was asking her about how to phrase something. She was like, "Oh, do it like this.
yeah.
This is how you say it in Arabic." And it was sweet. That's the Libya I think he wants to bring, I think he wants to create.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, Kira, on to the next story.
Yes.
What have you got for us?
I'll reshare my screen. So this is an interview that I did with one of my favorite people in the world, Lisette Stalbow. Um, she is just the most glamorous, wonderful, classy, amazing, fantastic, interesting human being in the world. And she was somebody that I interviewed 2 years ago when I first started the page, and I did a very shoddy job, let's just say. It was really not very well spliced together, but she finally allowed me, well, not finally, she was back in London, and she said that I could go and interview her again. And I interviewed her in a lot more detail a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to show you her testimony. And I think I want people, when they watch this, to see again the multifacetedness. You know, she'll talk about one thing and then she'll move straight onto the other. That she'll talk about living and then exile, but it all sort of exists together, which is really, really important for me to showcase. So let me just share this with you now. Here we go again. Sorry, hold on. Where is she? She is here. Some of you might have seen this already because it's quite new, but I'll show it to you now.
Oh, hello. I'm Lisette. I was born Lisette Eskenazi in Cairo. My father was Sam Eskenazi, born in Izmir in Turkey at the time of the Ottoman Empire. My mother, Benvenuta Tarragano, was born in, as she called it, Constantinople. But they met and married in Egypt, where I was born, where I spent the happiest 9.5 years of my childhood. So Cairo for me was Groppies, it was Sicurels, it was Café Riche, where my father played backgammon, because sometimes my mother would send me down, go and get your father, dinner's ready. Going to the mango juice place, going with my friend Amani, going to the cinema on a Saturday, an open-air theatre cinema, where you'd see 4 films, and speaking perfect Arabic and French and Ladino at home, kind of Spanish, Jewish Spanish, with the family. I loved the sunsets. I loved the smells. I loved the flavors, the colors. It was buzzy. It was cosmopolitan. There were lots of different people. We had Italian neighbors, Turkish neighbors, Greek neighbors. There were always a lot of people around the table. There were people of all faiths who we'd invite, so they would experience a Passover. It makes me emotional because those days are gone. Who knows? And it's not, who knows? And of course they're also my memories as a 9-year-old. So, you know, I wasn't old enough to really follow what politically was going on. Egypt was my home, was where I was born. It was my childhood. It was everything. Yeah, actually. Yeah, we didn't have family in Turkey, left in Turkey. We didn't have family anywhere else but in Egypt. So everything was in Egypt. 1956, November 1956, changed that because suddenly a knock on the door and a policeman saying to my mother, you have 48 hours to leave the country. And on the exit, it was no right of return. It was like they stamped this thing which said you could never come back. And I thought, hold on. What do you mean I can't? I'm Egyptian. What? I'm not Egyptian. What am I? That was a shock. And that's why at the beginning, when you say you're an Egyptian, I feel that's my childhood, but it's hard to say because they threw me out and said I could never come back. Now they're saying, yes, come. But, you know, it was hard at the time to be evicted from what you thought was your home. So it was hard. Yeah. Oh, hello.
Oh, you can almost see the tears in her eyes. I mean, she's still reliving that experience as if it was yesterday.
Yeah, she's such an interesting lady because she holds, it's similar with David Gerbi, but very different. Lisette sees Egypt from the mind of a 9-year-old who didn't know what was going on, had no idea politically that there was any issue whatsoever. So she sees it from a sense of, there was absolutely no reason for me to have been forced out of my home. I don't understand it. And you can feel it. And it makes me sad when she gets emotional, because you can, the way she talks about the sunsets and what Cairo used to be like, and all the multi-cultured, ness of the society that she lived in. It's sad.
Hi, Cara. Cara, here is an Egyptian laissez-passer of an Egyptian national with the actual stamp on the passport saying no return.
Yeah.
This is from Egypt from 1957.
Wow. It's interesting to me in a political sense, because I think, obviously, not to talk about the current geopolitical issue with Israel and Palestine, but I think one of the things that often gets brought up is this idea of no right of return. And I think it's so interesting that while that is the case, the same sort of tactics were applied to the Jews of the Middle East and North Africa, which I think a lot of people sort of overlook and don't discuss. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the place is never the same. I know Lisette's been back to visit Egypt, and many Jews have been back to visit, but they get terribly disappointed when they see, and they see how the place has deteriorated, how it's overcrowded and dirty, and their home just does not look like it did at the time. The place has changed completely. So they perhaps rather live in that country of the mind, and maybe not, maybe it's too painful to actually go back.
Yeah, I think what you can learn from people like David Gerbi and Lisette, though, is that they still, what I notice about both of them is that, yes, Lisette has gone back to Egypt. Yes, David Gerbi has gone back to Libya. And yes, he had a not a very nice time in 2011. But I think they've both found ways to get closure. The last time I spoke with Lisette, I think I got this sense of closure, sort of, well, the last time I went to Egypt might be the last time I go, but I feel that I've kind of seen what I wanted to see, and that's it. And I do think she really enjoyed seeing many parts of Egypt, and seeing that her house was still there, the apartment she lived in was still there, the coffee shop was still there. Seeing those things that you recognize is amazing. I felt like with people like David Jabi as well, just being able to be back in Libya is special. Just being able to be there is important. It doesn't matter how much it's changed or deteriorated. I think some people, as much as they do have a memory in their minds that they want to maintain and they don't want that to change, I do think when a lot of them do go back, they do still find pockets of things that can, bring that sense of nostalgia and make them happy. Like I said, it's a very multicolored issue. It's not as simple as a lot of them go back and say, oh, it's changed so much, how rubbish. A lot of them go back and have very unique experiences based on what they see and what brings them, comfort or nostalgia.
Yeah, and actually, maybe we should make clear that not many people have gone back to Libya. I think there's one other person, Raphael Luzon, who went back to India, and he also did not have a very nice experience. I think he was put in prison and had to leave in a hurry. I think his life was at risk. But I
But
think it's
sorry.
a lot more common for Egyptian Jews, obviously, because of the peace agreement that was signed, and there was tourism for a time, so more common for Egyptian Jews.
Exactly, but I think also with somebody like Raphael Luzon, again, it's a multi-layered thing. One time he went back, he was arrested, absolutely. But another time that he went back with his mother, and he loved it. They had a great time. They walked around, they saw all their old haunts and things like that. So again, some of these people have visited several times. And the first time is amazing, or the second time is amazing, but another time is not so nice. So I think again, it's very, very nuanced, and but even I always go back to the example of David Gerbi, right? Somebody and Raphael Luzon. they went back, they had not very nice times, but it's still not going to deter them from wanting to go back still, to visit, to make changes. I think it's more about them wanting to make a change. Rafael Luzons does so much for Libya. He does so much with people in Libya, because I think they just have this hope that they can change something. There's still time, which I think is beautiful. And I think a lot of people are very pessimistic and will say, well, it's futile, it's rubbish, they're never going to listen to you. But I think having people that have that optimism and have that hope still after so much time is so beautiful. I love it. I'm so inspired by it.
So, Kira, have you got another story for us?
I can find one feeling. I don't usually dwell too much on people's expulsions. I really like to showcase a lot of sort of how they lived and the culture and the heritage. But if you guys bear with me for 1 second, I can scroll down and you can have a look. I might also show you maybe something to do with some of the hardships. So, for example, somebody that I recently interviewed was a gentleman called Fuad Yadgar, and his brother was actually hanged in 1969 in the Baghdad hangings in Tahrir Square. So I will show you that. But firstly, I'd like to show you a lovely lady called Nadia. Her name's actually Saad, and she is amazing and very animated in the way that she speaks. Unfortunately, she's not speaking about something particularly pleasant. But I will share it with you now. She's from Iraq. Hold on. Where is she? You probably recognize some faces, by the way, if anybody knows anybody here. There's Rafael Luzon, who we just mentioned.
Yes.
Here we are. This is Leaving. Yes, this is the one I wanted to show you.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Nadia, but everybody in my family would call me Suad. I was born and raised in Baghdad until I was 3.5, and I'm an Iraqi Jew. So I want to tell you a story about when we fled Iraq. So all our belongings were outside. We were not allowed to take any. So people could come and just take. And then one man, a big man, I was only a child at 3.5, and he was taking. And I said, Mama, وهذا الرجال ياخذ الحاجاتنا. This man is taking our things. And I bit his thumb. And he said, he couldn't get his thumb out. And he said, ah. And he hit me on the head. Marika, she saw him do that. So she was a big fat woman and short. So she took a bucket and she started to hit him with the bucket. You're hurting a little girl. It's very, very sad to be uprooted like that very suddenly. And we just had to leave. Just like that, left everything, the security and everything. Oh, I feel really cross about how story of the Jewish people happened like that. Because they loved Iraq. They loved Iraq. It was there many, many generations in Iraq. Hello, my name.
Right. So Iraq is one place where someone like Nadia will not be able to go back, I think. Do you agree? Yeah. And it seems like the trauma is still there.
Yeah, I think so too. I think as well, it's interesting because she was only 3 when she left, and yet it was still it was interesting to see how she was able to use humor and she was able to laugh about it. Because yeah, in hindsight, yes, it is funny, but it's awful that a 3-year-old would remember that because it's such a jarring experience, which made me really, really sad. So yeah, but I think there's remnants of Iraq, right? She left when she was 3, but then she started talking Iraqi, right? She started speaking the Iraqi Arabic halfway through because that's what she knows, that's in her, it's within her blood, you know? So I think it's so lovely, and I think like especially with that video, you can really see the sort of the ups and downs, because it's in one sense she's talking about exile and how awful it was, and yes, she's telling this story of how having your belongings basically on a driveway and somebody comes up and takes them, I think is absolutely unfathomable for most people. But then at the same time, she has this muscle memory of speaking in the Iraqi Jewish dialect, because it's still there. So I think it's I find it so fascinating just to watch how people you ask them questions about their past and they revert back to being that age,
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. Well, I'd like to see, I think we'd all like to see Fouad Yadgar's video, but before that, can I ask you, how did you come to do this sort of thing? When did you set up your page?
So I set up my page about 3 years ago now. In about 2022, about September 2022. And I set it up because I noticed that a lot of the social media that I was consuming, either on TikTok or on Instagram, was very, very heavily centered around the Ashkenazi Jewish experience. And while there's nothing wrong with that, we do live, when you live outside of Israel, which is obviously about 60% Mizrahi or Jews from the Middle East and North Africa, you're more used to seeing and hearing these stories. You're more used to having Iraqi restaurants and eating kebab and whatever. But in England and in London and in the diaspora, unfortunately, the maybe not unfortunately, but the dominant sort of Jewish experience is the Ashkenazi Jewish experience. And I felt like when I was scrolling through social media accounts, I would only ever see Hasidic Jews being represented, who for the most part were Ashkenazi, which I thought was nice because I think it's nice to humanize that specific demographic, but I couldn't relate. And it would just be Ashkenazi or religious or both. And then one day I stumbled across this video of a very chirpy, excitable American Jewish lady who had gathered up a bunch of Jewish influencers, whatever that word means, to talk about their favorite Jewish food. And I sort of was like, okay, fantastic. What are we going to hear? We're going to beat all the stuff I'm used to, all of that, Okay, so gefilte fish, schmaltz herring, other things, maybe Sephardi things, bonuelos, things that I personally could not relate to. And I just thought, how many likes and views does this video have? And it was in the hundreds of thousands. And I thought, as much as this is fantastic to raise awareness about Jewish people, you're raising awareness about a very specific demographic of Jewish people that's now becoming the default. And we already have enough of that in the media and on Netflix and things like that. So I thought, well, the best way that I can maybe combat this is to use my brain and all the useless information that I have about the Jews of the Middle East and North Africa, which back then I thought was loads. Now it was absolutely nothing. I knew absolutely nothing. And I'll just talk about it. My first ever video was about the Dangoor family. And the Dangoor family is a very, very interesting family. They are relatives of Hacham Ezra Dangoor, who was the chief rabbi of Baghdad until about, I'm not sure, 1925. I don't want to be wrong. And they had a printing press. It's fantastic. Anyway, the story about the Dangoors that I found to be the most interesting had a Coca-Cola to be bottled and distributed and manufactured in Iraq. So it was a Muslim-Jewish business partnership that brought Coca-Cola to Iraq effectively. So I filmed myself making this video, and that was sort of the beginning of the journey. And then over time, one of my friends who has an Iraqi Jewish mother came up to me and she said, "Did you know that my mum fled Iraq in 1971? I said, "No, I didn't." She said she still speaks fluent Judeo-Baghdadi Arabic. Would you like to interview her? And I thought, well, I have no experience interviewing anybody, and it shows in that video. But she told me a couple of stories in English, and then I said to her, "That's amazing. Repeat it word for word in Arabic, and I'm going to post it on TikTok. And I'm going to put no translation because I haven't even got a clue what you're saying. I'm going to post it and see what happened. I posted that first video where she was talking about the Farhud, the pogrom, if anybody doesn't know, in Baghdad in 1941, and it got 2 million views in Iraq, and all the comments were in Arabic, and I was translating translate, and all the comments were auntie or khala, I think you're amazing, and oh, we love you, and all of this. Iraqis are very emotional people. And I just thought, wow, the demographic for these videos can be people in the Arab world. This is amazing. And then from there, it just happened.
Right. And you have what, over 70,000 followers last
Yeah,
time I checked?
I think it's about 74. I want to say 74, I think.
74,000, yeah. And how did you manage to build up to that number?
So I started on TikTok, and then I noticed that TikTok didn't have the right sort of filters to filter out a lot of the anti-Semitism.
Mm.
Um, and I managed to get 92,000 followers on TikTok. So this is before I even had an Instagram page. I got 92,000 followers on TikTok. And then I just thought, you know what, this is getting far too anti-Semitic for me. I'm gonna, in tandem, kind of create an Instagram page. So I created an Instagram page, and then I thought the controls are a lot better. You can sort of limit people from commenting, and it's just a lot better when it comes to monitoring. So I just kind of went ahead with my Instagram, and building it up. I think it was just because it was this niche that was so untapped. And I think Jewish people who are Mizrahi or Sephardi, however they want to identify themselves, Jewish people whose families were from the Middle East and North Africa, I think they came to the page and they went, whoa, I've seen nobody ever talk about us before in this way, in this particular way. It's a short little snippet. Oh my goodness, my grandfather spoke Judeo-Baghdadi Arabic. Oh my goodness, there's a Kurdish guy from Iranian Kurdish Sanandaj, and he's Jewish and he's speaking Aramaic. What's going on, right? Or when they had Halachmania in Arabic, in the Iraqi Arabic, and people going, oh my God, that's the tune. I grew up, what? And I think it was confusing to people. And I think people were kind of looking at it going, wow, this is new. Then I think people in the Arab world were grateful to see themselves reflected in these Jewish people, in these Jewish communities, because the story of the Jews of the Middle East and North Africa is kind of passed on in the Middle East. It's your grandma tells you, oh, you know, we had a Jewish neighbor in Baghdad. Okay, and they're sort of they're from the history books. There's a black and white image in your head of, oh, your grandma walking in the souk, and oh, there you go, there's a Jewish guy selling her eggs, right? It's not real. And I think a lot of the people in the Arab world who were following me were shocked. What do you mean there is an Iraqi Jewish lady speaking to me in my language, right to my heart and soul, and I can't have access to her. She's gone. She's a forgotten part of my history. Why are we not learning about these people? And then I noticed that it was impacting Ashkenazi Jews as well. So it's all these three sort of demographics of people. Ashkenazim were benefiting heavily because a lot of them were realizing, oh, hang on a minute. We just hear that you guys don't eat kidney arch at Pesach. I didn't know if this different. Like, what? You know, and it was, oh, Sephardi Jews aren't just a thing that we can just say, oh, they have their own synagogues. Oh. It was, well, you have to acknowledge them. Look how similar they are to people from the Middle East. And yes, that might be uncomfortable for some people, but you've got to acknowledge it because it's not going away. So that's what I started to realize from posting all these videos. And that's how it grew the following, because it was impacting all these different pockets of society in ways that I didn't anticipate it to.
Right. Well, you've done a fantastic job. Can you tell us something about your own family background, Kira?
Yes, I can. So my family, I'm a bit of a mixed bag, but my dad's side is the Mizrahi side, so obviously the most relevant for the page. He's part Baghdadi Indian, so Iraqi Jews who went to Bombay, specifically an area called Baikala. And the Jews of Baikal, upheld their Iraqi Jewish customs slightly more than other areas of Bombay that were slightly more British influenced, and other parts of India like Calcutta, which was the head of the British Raj at the time. So the Baghdadi Jews of Baikal were slightly more Iraqi in their nature. So that's why a lot of those Iraqi cuisine, so the food that we make, even though it's got slight differences, like adding turmeric to our tabit, it's still basically the same. Some of the curses, which I find strange, that Iraqi curses are the ones that stick, but not being able to say how was your day, how was your week, being able to tell somebody that you want their eye to be destroyed, and all of this is what passes down. And then the other part of my dad's heritage is Adeni, from Aden, from Aden. Some of my family were from an area of Aden called Crater, and then they left. So yeah, that's me.
That's you. Actually, what you say about the curses is hilarious, because actually I used to think that there were only curses in Arabic, because that's all you heard all day long, so it's funny you had that sort of comment. And what was the other thing I wanted to ask you about? Yeah, you said in your description actually of this talk, you said that you you want to allow Jewish people to tell their stories rather than let others do it for them. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, interesting. Put me on the spot there, Lynn. No. Okay, so I think, as with all Jewish people, there's always this feeling anyway that the media will tell our story for us, especially when talking about politics and things like that. It often feels like we're this very it almost feels like you're in a room and people are talking about you directly in front of you, and you're there going, hang on a minute, you're wrong. And the other people are just chatting amongst themselves, talking about you, and you have no say in the matter. And that's sort of how I felt. I started to see things, especially from about May 2021. I started to see that the story of the Jews of the Middle East and North Africa was being tokenized. Tokenized in a sense of, I would see accounts from the Arab world, but also from the Jewish world, sort of taking the stories and twisting them and distorting them to fit a specific narrative. It was either in the Arab world, it was, oh, look at these little brown Jews who went to Israel and they were treated like crap and they were in tents and it was awful, right? Or it was from certain Jewish accounts that were maybe slightly more right wing. It was, well, look at these people. Their lives were a complete mess in the Arab world. They never had an ounce of happiness. They never lived well. They had a terrible, awful, horrendous time. Everything about their lives was awful. Thank God they've now come to Israel, right? And I thought, there's got to be a middle ground here. There is a middle ground. I know that it exists. There's such a nuance. It's not as black and white as all of this is making it seem. Why can't these people tell their own stories from their own mouths, from their own lips, and talk about what life was actually like? I think as Jewish people, we've gotten so used to hearing Ashkenazi-centered testimony, where it's often about death. And as much as that is painful, the story of Ashkenazim, with absolutely not their fault in any capacity, is, unfortunately, we don't know a lot about how Ashkenazi Jews lived in their countries. We know a lot about how they died, and we know a lot about the horrors that they faced, but we don't know enough about how they lived. And I felt that when I spoke to Jewish people who lived in the Middle East and North Africa, there was lots of stories about how they lived, where they went, where they got fish. Oh, we walked along the Tigris, we got masgouf. Oh, we went to the Aroz Debak on Al Rashid Street in Baghdad. Great. I don't hear that about Ashkenazi Jews, So I felt like it was important for these people to tell their own story, because I knew that it wasn't just rooted in pain and suffering, and there was so much more to it.
Yeah. So perhaps we can go to the next video, Kira. What was it you wanted to play? Did you?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to play the video
Yeah.
of Fuad Yadgar.
Okay,
He's
right.
a guy, and his brother was, like I said, for those who might have just recently joined, his
Yeah.
brother was killed by the Ba'ath Party, Saddam Hussein's party, in 1969 in Tahrir Square, the Baghdad hangings. Jews were hanged after a sham trial under the suspicion of espionage in Tahrir Square. So I'll play that for you now.
Right. Thank you.
Of course. Well, I'd give you some context. Okay. So, oh, here she is again. There we go.
Hello, I am Fuad Yadgar. I'm an Iraqi Jew from Basra in Iraq. My brother was hanged in Tahrir Square in Baghdad on the 27th of January 69, accused for spying by the Ba'ath Party. My brother's name, Dawood Ghani, God rest his soul. My brother and I were very, very close. We used to play games with each other, eat together. I used to admire his skills in painting. He was fabulous at painting landscapes and beautiful buildings. We had a great time. I left to come to England to study while he was left there to look after the family and doing the job of two brothers all by himself. The time of the hanging, I was listening to the radio, and all of a sudden they were saying there's hangings in Iraq. And my cousins and my friends came to where I was, and they were there when I heard the news about my brother was among the 9 being hanged. I really, really was shocked. I actually passed out and I had to be revived by my cousins. It was a tragic shock to hear 9 people getting hanged, let alone my brother is among them. It took me a while to recover. My mother was devastated. She only had my brother there and my 2 sisters. They were desperate to see me and join me. His fate, his death affected my life very, very much. I decided to live his life as well as mine in parallel, have as much food as the 2 of us could have. I doubled everything. I wanted to live his life as well as mine in parallel. So I made up for his loss by living my life double full. And this is what shaped my outlook. And that's how I worked harder, studied harder, achieved harder, as if he was having his life as well as mine together. It was devastating because I really wanted my brother to come to England and enjoy the same life that I was having. Freedom and holidays and eating and dancing and music and watching James Bond films and living life as if there is no tomorrow. I hope with the tragedy of my brother's hanging, with all innocent people who were hanged with him, including Christians and a Muslim or two that also suffered the same fate. I hope this will be a great lesson for humanity to learn to love each other and forgive and forget about the tragedies that happen to Jewish, Christians, and Muslims. It's a good world. It's a beautiful world if you try and make it. Follow the wisdom of good people who want to make the world a better place.
Ah, what an extraordinary man. And he hasn't got a trace of bitterness, has he? And this idea of living for his brother and living life to the full, regardless. I mean, amazing.
Yeah, that made me sad. Yeah, I actually cried in front of him when he said it. He said it first of all off camera. Um, and I asked him to repeat it because I wasn't expecting him to say it. I think it might be something, maybe it's my own personal bias, but I'm not used to men being that articulate with their emotions in that respect. And he was fine. The whole time he was talking about his brother was almost like it was sort of a different person had experienced it. And then right towards the end, I had asked him, I said, "Do you miss your brother?" And he just started talking about how much he missed, watching James Bond films with him, and he wished that he could, and then he said that about, "I just tried to live my life double." And I burst into tears. I thought, oh my God, like it's been how many years? And you can still feel that way, and you still are living your life that way. I know he is. He says he continues to this day to live his life for his brother. And I thought, you haven't seen your brother since 1965, I think, is when he last saw his brother. And this is how you continue to live your life. I just found it so inspirational. It was awful. It was awful. But he isn't bitter. He's not. He like he said at the end, to be able to say, well, it was Jews and Christians and a Muslim who was also hanged. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah.
The fact that he could hold space for that made me really, really. It was, again, inspirational.
So let's lighten the mood a little bit. We're coming up to Pesach, and I seem to remember you had a video of a lady from Morocco describing her Pesach. Isn't that correct? Or can you think of anything that pertains to Pesach that we could watch?
Yeah, I don't know that was me. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I interview a lot of people. I'm sorry. But no, I have one that I posted yesterday actually, which was a Moroccan Jewish man reading out part of the Haggadah in Darija, Moroccan Darija.
Yes, sorry. Maybe I'm
No,
confused.
it's fine.
Sorry.
And
Showing my age.
another one is my boyfriend's father reading out Halachmania. His parents were from Iraq, so his accent might be a bit dodgy for the Iraqis, the native Iraqi Arabic speakers here. But I'll play both of those. They're short clips.
Okay, that would be lovely. Thank
Yeah,
you.
fantastic. Okay, yes, that will lighten the mood a little bit after all the Exodus. So here we go. I'll play Halachmania first. Let me try and find it. Okay, here it is.
هذا خبز المسكين إلى أكلوا إبهتنا في بلد مصر كل جوعان يجي وياكل كل معتاز يجي ويفسخ السنة نخنهن سنة الجاية في بلد إسرائيل السنة نخنهن عبيد سنة الجاية في بلد إسرائيل بنين المتلوقي هذا خبز.
Sorry, I just realized I have another short one right next to it of an Iraqi Jewish Passover. This is not my video. This was taken from a library in Israel. But I will play it if you don't mind. Is that all right?
Yeah, no, that would be perfect. Thank you. There's no sound. We get the sort of atmosphere.
إلهينا ملك عالم أشي قديشان وبمصوتاب وصوان ولاد ليتنير של יום טוב ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה ונתחורף אל האדמה يفضل لا يفلت ولا يهمك كيف برוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם פורק לי האדמה لا تفضل ابو ايلي موشي تعال ابني تسال عند ابوك شدية هاي البني اسرائيل تعبري مرنا ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם ופרי הגבר.
And the last one I'll
Oh,
show is the Moroccan Jewish.
right.
I filmed this I filmed this a couple of weeks ago in Paris. A person who followed me said my dad would be amazing for you to interview. So I went to random French strangers' houses and I filmed this lovely gentleman. And so this is like a Judeo-Arabic Darija mix. And I don't think a lot of people, unless they are Moroccan Jewish themselves, have potentially heard this. So here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Raymond Azoghi. I'm a Moroccan Jewish. I was born in Morocco in 1965. I live in France since 1984. And I want to show you, for example, a piece of Haggadah we used to read in Pesach, which is translated in Arabic. And if you want, I will tell you a piece of this Haggadah. I will read it in the Moroccan way, in Arabic, of course. Okay, it's the last bless in the first half of the Haggadah. Maybe I will sing it. اوكي مباركنتين إلها سلطان الدنيا تفكنا وفك جدودنا بالمسار ولحقنا الليلة هادي ناكلو في الفطير والمرار هكذاك يا إلهي لنا ولا جدودنا لقنا اللقات والعيد وخرين جايين قدامى المعفية فرحانين ببنيان بلادك وسيرين بالمطاق وناكلو تما من الذبايح ومن سفايك اللي يلحق دمهم على حياة مطباق الرفضة وشكرو كاس قرار جديد على فكنا وفكلو جدودنا مباركين لها يا فاك إسرائيل.
I think Israel was about the only word I understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing. It just goes to show how important it is what you're doing. And you know, it's really an excellent way of doing it by interviewing people and recording their stories, and it is so precious. It's so important. So I think we've almost been going for about an hour, but could I ask you, because I noticed there was a video of Samantha Ellis, who you interviewed not so long ago, perhaps. She's got a new book coming out, and she happens to be our next, our next interviewee on Harif on the 22nd of April. And her story actually is quite amazing. I mean, you have to read the book, but what I liked about your interview was actually she talks about these containers with coal inside them. That's coal, which is what ladies use for their makeup. And if you read the book, you don't get a real impression of how beautiful these containers are. So what I really appreciated about your interview is you could actually see these beautiful, they're works of art. And actually to listen to her is amazing. So if you could play that, that would be wonderful. And it will be a wonderful introduction to our next event.
Of course, yeah, no problem. I did actually post, well, I will be posting a longer interview with Samantha about her book. But this one, I thought it would just be a nice little taster. And I thought these objects were lovely, like you said. So here we are.
Hi, I'm Samantha Ellis. My parents are both Iraqi Jews. My mother left in 71, my dad left in 51, and I was born in London. I'm just going to show you a couple of things that I have from Iraq. This is an afsa. I don't know, I think it's just Iraqi Jews who do this. It's an amulet. And this is an oak gallnut, this piece here. And it's supposed to have antibacterial properties, maybe it does. And it's wrapped in these little, I don't know if you can see, little strands of gold here, and then there are the blue stones here, and then obviously Hamza with the blue stone in the palm. And you're supposed to put it on your newborn's baby grow or in their cot or whatever. I think this was put on me by my mum. I didn't put it on my son. I don't know why. I did put salt on him, which is another Iraqi Jewish superstition to keep on being alive. I didn't put this on. I didn't. And yeah, I just think it's very beautiful. I wear it as a necklace, so it is magic. I'm supposed to do that, but it does have this little loop, so I wear it like that. So the next thing are these three coal pots, eyeliner coal pots that my mum brought from Iraq. So when I was a child, these were always sitting on the dressing table, and I absolutely loved them. And I used to fiddle with them, and I used to do the tail of the peacock up and down. My mum always said we shouldn't use it. She said the coal was lead-based and it would be poisonous, and so I never did. And when I started looking into sort of my family story a little bit, and I was writing a book about it, I thought, surely I can use this coal. I really wanted to use it. And I sort of picked it up and, and there's none left. It's really sadly, it's all sort of dried up. But I also discovered the story I had about it wasn't right. So I'd always thought of my mum being in Iraq and going to parties and, doing her eyes before she went. And these were sort of part of that sort of story that I told myself. Anyway, my mum left in 1971 and she was 20 and she lived through the 60s, which were very difficult for the Jews in Iraq. And she didn't really go to parties or anything like that. There wasn't very much of that to do. It was a very difficult life. And she only got these just before she went. She was at university. She was at Baghdad University doing statistics. And she had some friends there and she went to tell them they finally got permission to leave. And she went to say goodbye and she mentioned to one of her friends, I just wish I'd managed to get a coal pot before I left. And I really, she always really liked them. And he turns up that evening at the house and he brought her these three. Actually, I don't know if they even ever had coal in them, given that she got them right at the end. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But they were always about leaving, I guess. In my mind, they were about the sort of glamorous time before, but they weren't in my family. These were about the rupture, the leaving Iraq. So, different story. But I still think they are quite beautiful. Hi, I'm Samantha Ellis.
Oh, that's absolutely priceless. Love it. So, I'm not sure if there are any comments. There might be a few, but I just wanted to point out, Kira, this is not your full-time job, is it? This is your hobby.
Yeah, this is my hobby. It's something I'd love to make my full-time job, because I'd love to be able to go around and tell people about this and just devote a lot more time to it than I have been able to. But no, it started as a hobby. It's still a hobby, I guess, but it's my passion. I love it so much, and it's just a pleasure to be able to do it, to be honest.
And I don't think it would be embarrassing to say that, any help or support that anybody can give you would be much appreciated. If people want to visit Kira's page, it is the Mizrahi story, not Mizrach history, but Mizrahi story on Instagram. I'm completely envious because we've got an Instagram page which only has about 300 followers. It's called Jewish Refugees, if anyone's interested. But actually, it's being built up by a volunteer who helps us called Daisy Matthewman, and she's doing a great job. She's built it up in about 6 months from 12 people. So we're going great. But if anybody is on Instagram, please do visit Kira's page, The Mizrahi Story, and you will enjoy all these videos and you will learn something from them. So I think, I don't know if there's anything there that's people are making comments. I think there's one or two. Perhaps we can just.
I wonder if anybody just wants to say something and ask a question. I don't know if that's something that you do. I don't know if anybody maybe.
Yeah, we will be doing it, I think, once the recording is stopped, because people get a bit shy.
Okay.
But I think if there's anything in the chat that you'd like to answer.
Let me have a look to see if there's anything that's in there.
David is here. David Gerbi.
Oh, hi, David. How are you doing? We spoke about you.
Yeah, I think there's an organization called Medabrim Al Mizrahim. Yes, I picked that up on the Jerusalem Post, actually. It's a new organization to draw attention to the roots of Israeli Jews in the Middle East, which I think is a wonderful thing.
I've added David's spotlight.
Yeah, Dave.
Hello.
Yeah, wanted to ask something, and it's somebody called Mel.
Buonasera.
Buonasera, Lynn. Buonasera. First of all, I want to thanks to Lynn Julius, that I know of her for many years, for the excellent work she's doing in collecting many stories. This is like to have a library of Jewish from Middle East and North Africa. And I always follow you. Thank you for this excellent work, Lynn. And thanks to Lynn, I met in Lynn house just maybe 2 or 3 months ago. She invited me to have an excellent lunch with a great company of Chara Shalom, that she made me an interview. I love the way that she does the interview. I'm a doctor and I'm a psychoanalyst, so my profession is about questioning and allow the patient to find the answer, and maybe if I am lucky, I can give the right interpretation. I think that the gift that Chara Shalom she has is about the way she addressed the people to go inside on the non-aggressive way of telling the story, not from a place telling the story becoming the aggressor or becoming the victim of the poor me, what's happened to us, or to curse the enemy. So she has a very delicate style to take you on a journey, and really something that I never met a person like this. And you have to tell the story in a few minutes, and you need to summarize your story in just a short time. And I just can applaud and encourage you to continue this work. And I think that is a good combination. Harif and Chara, I see a very generative combination of both of you. And I'm very pleased and honored that today you have been telling my story. I was finished to work with the patient, so I didn't come inside on time. But as soon as I finished, I went out and I clicked to be with you. So thank you, and keep doing the good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David, because I don't know if people know, but you do a constant amount of work on this subject. You are forever organizing events, and we can't thank you enough for what you do.
Yeah, thank you, David. It was so lovely to interview you. And if you watch the recording, we showed your video quite early on, and Lisette joined as well. Hi, Lisette. I think she might have gone, but anyway.
Mel had her hand up, so Mel is next, I think.
Okay, Mel. Okay, Mel is next. Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Okay, Mel.
Oh, it's Marcia. It's Marcia.
Marcia, sorry. Mel's your husband. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. I'm the one that wrote in about the Medabrim al Mizrahim.
Right.
And I thought that was really interesting and important that, people are aware, people think, oh, most of the Israelis are of European descent. They're foreigners, they came from a foreign country, a foreign land, and they're not connected to the Middle East. And that's really incorrect, because there's so many Israelis who are from the Middle East, and their culture is similar. So
yeah, Very good point, and we applaud this initiative. As you say, there's so much propaganda about European colonial settlers
Yep.
that we really need to get our narrative out there. Yeah.
Correct.
So
Thank you
fantastic.
so much.
Great.
So look who's
Love it.
here, Lisette Stalbow. Your ears were burning. Where are you? In an airport or something?
Yes, I've just arrived at Heathrow from Tel Aviv.
Oh, fantastic.
Can you hear me? Yes, I'm
Yes,
waiting
we
for the
can.
luggage. So
Oh,
I'm looking. Yes, I missed, but I'm looking forward to seeing the recording. And I so agree with David and everything he said about both of you, really, because it's thanks to you and Kiara for actually bringing and keeping the stories alive. And it's amazing the number of people who really didn't have a clue about what was. I've noticed even with the friends we've made in Israel, Holland and Sweden and other countries, and I feel that through you and Kiara, I'm giving them an education, which I probably wouldn't have had the courage to do on my own. So thank you.
no, thank you. And you do it very well. I don't know if people know, but Lisette is also a poet. We've got a poem or two on the Point of No Return blog on the Harif website, and so it's thanks to people like Lisette, you know, that who can articulate their feelings so beautifully. So
Absolutely.
we have the written word, and then we have the visual, you know, input. It's a great combination. Joe. Hello, Joe.
Joe, would you like to unmute yourself, Joe? Ah, perfect. Done.
I'm so impressed. Thank you so much for your effort in interviewing and bringing stories. I was born in Baghdad in 1930, and I was 10 years old at the time of the Farhud. As I grew up, a happy childhood, but then the Farhud turned up my life upside down. And in brief, I smuggled out after 1948 because I was refused an exit visa to go to America to study. So I smuggled out to Iran, and I went to Israel. I was homeless, penniless refugee there. And finally, at 2020, at the age of 90, I wrote my book, Beyond the Rivers of Babylon, and it's available on Amazon on audio. And in 2024, I was able to translate my book to Arabic and published in Baghdad. So I commended you and I'd love to contact you and to see we can talk together. Thank you so much, and happy Passover.
So this is a possibility, isn't it, Kira? Could you do transatlantic interviews? Can you do interviews with people on the other side of the world?
So I don't. Hi, Joseph. Thank you. And that sounds really interesting. You look very familiar to me. I think I've probably maybe seen you in a Sephardi Voices or some sort of interview online. You look really, really familiar to me. So thank you. And usually I don't really do Zoom interviews because I feel like sometimes it takes away with how personal it is. But what I would love to do is maybe chat after this, and certainly about your book, and maybe see if I can do something to advertise it a bit more, because I know people who follow the page would be really interested in it. So yeah, I'd love to chat. I don't know, maybe Lynn can pass on my email address to you. Would that be okay?
Sure. I've got Joe's details anyway.
Okay, lovely. And Chag Sameach as well, by the way.
Okay, so well, thank you so much to everybody who has commented, and thank you, Kira, for all the work you're doing, and I wish you all the best in the future. So I think we're coming to the end of this Zoom. It's been absolutely riveting. I wish we could play more videos, but if anyone hasn't got an Instagram account, here's an idea. Why don't you open one and you can see all Kira's videos and follow her page. So thank you so much, Kira.
Thank you.
I want to wish everybody Hag Sameach for next week. And this is the Festival of Freedom, of course, because after exile comes freedom, liberation. And here are the advertisements, actually, future events coming up. Michelle's door. What events have we got in store? We've got, well, that was tonight. And this is Samantha Ellis's book, Chopping Onions on My Heart. We're going to have a lovely conversation about it. That's on the 22nd of April. Then Tunisian Jews under Nazi rule. This is 80 years since the end of the war, and so it's an occasion to explore these little-known subjects. Also, the Tripolitania pogrom in Libya, 80 years since that one. So I hope to see you all then. And as I said, thank you all for joining me, and I wish you a very happy Pesach. And exile is what do you call it? Every cloud has a silver lining. Exile has a silver lining. We're all free. We live in democratic countries, and we put the past behind us. And I think this is the way we have to look at life. So Hag Sameach to everyone. I'd like to thank Kira again for a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, and good luck in all the work you do.
Thank you for having me, and thanks everybody for listening. If anybody would like to reach out or email me anything, I don't think you'll be able to catch my email if I write it here, but if you want to email Lynn, I'm sure she can pass it on.
info@harif.org, and I will pass on Kira's details.
No problem, and I look forward to chatting to some of you if anybody needs me. So thank you for having me.
Might get some interviews out of this.
Maybe. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. All the best. Have a good evening.